The crafting revamp in Dragonflight brought with it a ton of changes, as well as a ton of new things to craft. Specifically though, a lot of new phials, which replaced flasks in the old expansions, were introduced with varying effects and use cases. In today's video, I'll be going over all the different phials and which ones are the best for Havoc and for Vengeance in both Raid and Mythic Plus. Before we get to that though, I just want to say that a lot of my viewers aren't subscribed, so if you're watching this, hit the subscribe button. It would really help me out. We're pushing up towards 4,000 and I'll have tons of content in the future. So with that, enjoy the video. So today, we're going to start off by talking about Havoc Demon Hunter. Now, of course, as you all know, Havoc Demon Hunter is my main, so it's the one I know the most. So I can talk about this one fairly confidently about which is going to be the best. Now this is actually going to change, so if those of you who have watched my Season 1 Havoc guide, I actually recommended a different potion, so to the one I'm going to recommend to you guys today. Since that's come out, a few changes have come out that lets you know basically that Ice Phial Corrupting Rage is going to be our best phial effect. Now at the start, we thought that Ice Phial, while it was good and does sim very well, the downsides were pretty heavy. However, with testing, with playing that our innate defensiveness, so our things that reduce magic damage and just how much HP we have, kind of make the dot from it really minor, especially because we can just leech off all the value, all the damage that it does to you. So Ice Phial Corrupting Rage is really good because the downside it gives you is just negated by our class. Really, like I've been running it in everything, Mythic Prog. The only time I didn't run it was in like a really high damage boss. You kind of get dealt a lot of damage. But Ice Phial of Corrupting Rage is really good because of how much crit it gives you. So a 385 Bronze Star one gives you 948 crit. I think a 3-star one gives you like 1200 crit, which is a ton of crit. And then you can also kind of negate the downside even more if you spec into alchemy and get that thing that reduces the severity of potions on you. So Ice Phial Corrupting Range is very good. This will be just your best in total. It gives you so much crit, and crit is so powerful for Havoc because of course, know your enemy. Now, if you are very worried about Ice Phial Corrupting Rage, if you're like, uh-oh, this might kill me, this has killed me, my raid leader's yelling at me, my dungeon group's yelling at me, I need to swap off this, then you go with Phial of Elemental Chaos. Basically what this one does is it gives you a buff every minute. It lasts for a minute that gives you secondary stats. There's like a Frost one, an Earth one, a Fire one, and a Wind one. They give you secondary stats and then also give you an extra effect. I think Fire is crit damage, Frost is like healing, Earth is like an absorb, and then Air is move speed, Air is haste, Fire is crit. Earth is mastery, and Frost is verse, I think, off the top of my head. I haven't actually used Phial of Elemental Chaos in a little bit because I've just been using Corrupting Rage. But this is your good option if you don't want to mess around with the downside that comes with Corrupting Rage. Of course, you know, there are scenarios where it can kill you. Obviously, Corrupting Rage, you know, could be dangerous, but realistically, Corrupting Rage is going to be your best bet. In lower gear, however, Phial of Glacial Fury might actually end up being your best option there, especially if you're doing dungeons. So in lower gear content where that amount of crit isn't that big of a deal for you, you have just low gear overall. The base damage of Phial of Glacial Fury will actually end up being a lot of your damage overall in a dungeon. It will be in raid as well, however, because you're not proccing that extra increase per stack of enemies you hit, it won't be as strong in a raid scenario as in a dungeon, but it will still be your best bet in raids if you are really low eye level. So to recap what I was just talking about, Ice Phial Corrupting Rage, despite its downside, is your best one. This gives you crit, basically cycling whenever you take 20% of your health over 15 seconds and giving you more crit. Generally, this has roughly 70% uptime. So 70% uptime of like 1200 crit is really good. If you're worried about the downside, worried about it killing you, you can run Phial of Elemental Chaos, which gives you a cycling 1 minute buff of basically stats, but and then a minor gain as a secondary benefit. And then finally, if you're in low gear, Phial of Glacial Fury, which is just a proc that deals damage to you, is very strong at these lower gear levels. So that is it, and the recommendations for Havoc. For combat potions, just use your Elemental Potion of Power. They're very good. You can also use like the death potions if you want instead of HP potions. I wouldn't really recommend it. HP potions is really good. Same with restoring vitality versus refreshing healing potion. Doesn't really matter if you use those. But overall, those are the phials you're going to want to use as Havoc. This is Voodoo from the future. I actually forgot to mention that there's one other option for you if you are doing very high content. really things that are killing you, or you really find yourself struggling to stay alive to do these keys or these raids or something like that, then Phial of Tepid Versatility can be useful for you and can end up being that little bit of a difference, letting you live the dungeon or live the raid boss that you're currently doing. So Phial of Tepid Versatility is an option if you need that little extra bit of survivability, the little extra oomph, but its damage is lower than the other options. So yeah, that's me. Enjoy the Vengeance portion. So for Vengeance, the options are going to be a little bit different than they are for Havoc. Phial of Glacial Fury is generally going to be the best option for Vengeance, as it just provides the most damage for you. Unlike Havoc, Vengeance's damage baseline is lower, so the stats you gain from stuff like Phial of Elemental Chaos or Phial of Ice Phial of Corrupting Rage are just less useful overall. They do less damage. The proc on Phial of Glacial Fury just does so much raw damage, especially for Vengeance, that it's going to be your really good option sometimes. If you want a defensive choice, Phial of Tepid Versatility is going to be very strong as well. Just getting that large amount of extra versatility, a stat which Vengeance already does like and enjoys a fair bit, is going to be very powerful for you. Again, you know, if you're tanking high keys, or if you're doing, you know, pushing Mythic at a lower eye level, or just doing stuff outside of your gear level where you're struggling to survive, that little extra bit of versatility is going to come in a lot, be very handy to you, and let you live those things that you otherwise couldn't. So if you know, if you need to live more, Phial of Versatility, Tepid Versatility. If you need more damage, Phial of Glacial Fury. There are other options, of course, as well, if you want to spice it up a bit. Phial of the Eye of the Storm is very powerful if you're fighting multiple enemies. Basically, this is a Phial that increases your primary stat by 150 for each enemy that has recently struck you up to 5 times. So when fighting multiple enemies, this can give you upwards of 750 primary stat, which is a good offensive and defensive benefit, a nice mixture of both. If you want a bit of a defensive option or something, you know, that's also a little bit offensive, and you find yourself not having to move very often, maybe in a raid, we're not requiring a lot of movement, where tanks can be fairly stationary, then Phial of Static Empowerment is going to be very strong for you. This one reads, remaining stationary will increase your primary stat by up to 623 over 5 seconds. Whenever you move, you consume this effect, and giving you speed for 743, which lasts for 5 seconds. And then after the speed is gone, you get your stationary stats. Again, so, you know, if you don't have to move, this one can be very powerful. Wouldn't recommend this for dungeons, as there's a lot of moving in dungeons, kiting, whatever. But in a raid where you don't have to move very often, like a boss, like, oh, I don't even know a boss in the current raid. I don't know. Maybe Dathia, although the knockback might mess you up there. But if there's a boss where you don't have to move very often, then Phial of Static Empowerment will be very useful. Finally, if you don't like any of these options, you just want something that's kind of really aggressively mid, it does a lot of everything, you can do Phial of Elemental Chaos. It's kind of a last resort. You kind of don't want to have to do it, but if you need to, you can choose to run this one. It is there for you. It's an option, but again, you know, wouldn't really recommend it. From there, you know, potions, just use your Elemental Potion of Ultimate Power. You can use your Refreshing Healing Potions just to heal yourself. So really, nothing too exciting there. But in terms of Phials, Phial of Glacial Fury is going to be your best. The damage proc it does is really, really good for Vengeance. Phial of the Eye of the Storm is a very strong choice in AoE, as well as if you need some defensiveness. Phial of Tepid Versatility is a very strong defensive option, but its offensive value is diminished compared to some of the other options. If you need to stand still, or you don't need to move, Phial of Static Empowerment is very strong. And finally, Phial of Elemental Chaos is there as your last resort. If you don't need anything else, if you don't have anything else, then you can use this. But again, like I said, the stats aren't as powerful or as much of a gain for Vengeance as they are for Havoc. So you're better off doing something like Phial of Glacial Fury, which just gives you kind of a proc that does lots of damage that way. So those are going to be the best options for potions or Phials, as you will, for the different specs of Demon Hunter, both for Havoc and for Vengeance. Now, if you have any questions or any concerns about any of the other consumables, you can check out my video guides. I have a guide for Havoc and a guide for Vengeance. They'll be linked in the description down below. Or you can just drop a comment on this video. I'll be, you know, answering comments, of course, as best as I can to my abilities. But I want to thank you guys for watching the video. We're very close to 4,000 subscribers, so I just want to say thanks. It's kind of crazy we've hit here. You know, I'm a little bit shocked, a little bit surprised that we've even gotten here in the first place, and I just want to say thank you all from the bottom of my heart. It really means a lot to me, and I look forward to see where this goes. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Hope you found it a little bit useful, and I will catch you guys later. Peace.